Hey guys, today we're going to be going over the best in slot gear for Phase 3 for Rogues. I'm going to be covering the daggers and swords and both PvP and PvE best in slot gear. The only thing I will not be mentioning is going to be epic PvP rewards, as most of you guys will not have those, but we will cover the blue sets. Now, we're going to start with combat swords, and the biggest, upgrade you're going to get to your character is going to be chromatically tempered sword. And you're going to be replacing Viscag, and you can see that the chromatically tempered sword is going to hit harder and it's going to have better stats. We also, in the offhand, are going to be using Maladath instead of Brutality Blade. This goes for all rogues that are not humans, and the reason a human will not be using Maladath is because that increased sword skill is not required for them. It actually won't really do anything because they already have the sword skill that they need from their racial. So Maladath is going to be an upgrade for everyone but humans, and otherwise they're going to continue to use the Brutality Blade. For the ranged weapon, you're going to continue using Striker's Mark. There are good PvP weapons, but nothing better for PvE coming out of Black Glare. Now, on to the rest of the pieces. So you're going to be using Bloodfang. The reason for this is the individual best in slot pieces, the large majority of them are Bloodfang anyway, so you're already going to be pretty close to the 8 out of 8 set. And there's just a few slots like the shoulders, the hands, and the boots that really aren't that great, but you're paying the price of reduced stats in those slots in exchange for that 8 set bonus. So the idea is that the 8 set, the chance to inflict that extra damage is going to be more beneficial than the stats that you lose. And as long as the proc rate doesn't come out to be really terrible, when people are actually start putting together the 8 set, you're going to be using that 8 set in PvE on your sword characters. So next we have, to mention the pieces that you're going to be upgrading, right? So Bloodfang shoulders, the Bloodfang chest, the Bloodfang wrists, the Bloodfang belt, the Bloodfang boots, and you already are going to, and the gloves as well. And you already are going to be keeping with your Bloodfang pants and head that you were using, from Molten Core and Onyxia. So that's it for the gear. Now for the jewelry, you are going to be upgrading your neck from Onyxia Tooth Pendant to Prester's Talisman, small damage increase. You're going to continue to use Passant Cape. However, if you do not get your hands on Passant Cape, because it is pretty hard to get, you can upgrade from your Cape of the Black Baron to a Cloak of the Fire Maul. This is a side grade in Raid. It just gives you a little bit of extra stamina, and it has the other added benefit of moving more of the damage into attack power from crit. So in the situation where you might be crit capped, you can use the Cloak of Fire Maul instead of Cape of the Black Baron, as it does not increase your crit at all. So that's, again, side grade over to Cape of the Black Baron. They're both going to give you very similar amounts of damage. It's just that Cloak of the Fire Maul has stamina. So now the remaining items are going to be the rings. So you're going to continue to use your Band of Ikuria, but you will be using a new ring, the Master Dragon Slayer ring. And this is going to be a slight upgrade over Don Julio's. And so that's going to be just small damage upgrade, nothing too exciting there. And then finally, you're going to continue using your Hand of Justice, and you're going to try and pair with it the Drake Fang Talisman. Now this is going to replace your Black Hand's Breath, and 2% hit is a little bit worse than 2% crit in terms of raid damage. But the 56 attack power more than makes up for that difference. And so this is an amazing trinket and is really, really good. So this is all the best in slot gear for swords. Now for daggers, the gear slots are going to change quite a bit, but the jewelry and the cloak, everything stays exactly the same, the ranged weapon. But I guess we're going to start off with the weapons for daggers. You're going to continue to use Perdition Blade and Corehound Tooth. It is of note that Dragon Fang Blade is a very good main hand, and it's also a very good offhand. It's just it's not as good in the offhand as Corehound Tooth, because Corehound Tooth is faster and it has better stats. and it doesn't hit as hard as Perdition Blade in the main hand. So for those reasons, you're going to continue using Perdition and Gorehound Tooth, but Dragon Fang Blade is very good. Now, the armor slots do change quite a bit for Dagger Rogue. So first of all, the reason why Dagger Rogues are not going to be using the full tier 2 is because aged core leather gloves are so good, and the dagger skill is going to increase your damage by so much that you would actually be losing damage if you were to use the full tier 2, because you would not have aged core leather gloves. So that is the reason why you are not going to be using the full Blood Fang set, and you're instead going to be using the individual best items available. So obviously, the first one would be aged core leather gloves. For the head, you're going to be using, believe it or not, the blue set. And so even though the champion leather helm is a small downgrade over Blood Fang hood, and even though champion leather shoulders are a downgrade over Nightscape shoulder pads, because the 2 set bonus that gives 40 attack power, combined with that set bonus, they are actually going to be better than the tier 1 shoulders combined with the tier 2 head. So you're going to use that set of gear there. Now for the chest, the wrist, the belt, and legs, you're going to continue, or you're going to use Blood Fang and continue to use the pants, as they have more stats than Night Slayer. So really the only thing that's going to be different is then going to be the boots of Shadow Flame. The reason you're going to use these is because, well, simply they're just their best boots, and swords would gladly use these if they weren't going to go for full tier 2, but these are really, really good. Second best piece in Blackwing Lair for Dagger Rogues behind the Drakefang Talisman. So really, really great upgrade there, and overall rounds out the rogue items with a lot of hit, a lot of attack power. So great piece of gear here. So that's it for the PvE gear. On to the PvP gear. Next, we've got the PvP gear. So for weapons, we're going to continue to use Perdition Blade. The increased space damage is going to allow your backstabs and ambushes to hit harder than Dragon Fang Blade. For the offhand, you're going to continue to use Gorehound Tooth, and that is because the faster attack speed is going to give you more poison application to Dragon Fang Blade. Keep in mind that Dragon Fang Blade is very good and is a great alternative in either hand to Perdition or Gorehound Tooth. For Hemo, you're going to use Chromatically Tempered Sword in the main hand and Gorehound Tooth in the offhand. If you do not have a Chromatically Tempered Sword, you can use a Claw of the Black Drake. That is a great alternative that is going to be a lot easier to get, while also almost being as good, and it's obviously no big deal that it's not a sword in PvP. Now, for the ranged weapons, Heart Striker is best in slot due to the high stamina, and the Dragon Breath Hand Cannon is great as well. Both of these outshine the Blaster Shot Launcher as new additions for PvP. Onto the neck. The neck is actually pretty interesting, because even though Onyxia Tooth Pendant is not the best in slot neck, realistically it's what you're going to be using. And that's because the Master Dragon Slayer Medallion, which is the best neck available, is a shared quest reward with the ring. And not only is this ring best in slot in PvP, like we mentioned before, it's best in slot in raiding as well. And so you're going to have to choose between the ring and the neck. And in most cases, you're going to be choosing the ring. So if you do go with the neck, you will be using something like a Don Julio or a Band of Acura as a replacement for the Dragon Slayer ring, and you'll use the Dragon Slayer medallion. But I would say like 99% of people are going to be taking the Dragon Slayer ring, so you're going to be using the Onyxia Tooth Pendant for your neck. Other alternatives, you have the Darkmoon Fair neck and the Iskander neck. Those are decent as well, but 99% of people are going to be using the Onyxia Tooth Pendant. For the cloak, we have the Cloak of Firemaw. If you need 1% hit, you can use the Passant Cape, but that's hard to get as well. So in all likelihood, you're going to be using the Cloak of Firemaw. For the rings, we've got the Master Dragon Slayer ring that I mentioned before. That is going to outperform the Band of Acuria because of there's too much hit really on Band of Acuria. So unless you're struggling to hit the 5% soft cap, you're going to go with the Dragon Slayer ring because the attack power is better than the hit when you're already soft capped. Now, the Archimedes Ring of Reckoning. This is an amazing ring, the best ring in Phase 3, And due to the incredibly high stamina and agility, this is just the best ring, and you're going to want to try and use this whenever possible. Now for Trinket, we're going to use Fang Talisman. It just has too many stats to turn down, but if you don't have it, you can use the Black Hand Breath. So those are all of the slots that are not occupying the armor. So next we're going to talk about, I guess, the 8 armor pieces, and we're going to be using 5 Night Slayer, and the reason for that is that the 10 energy is really good in PvP. It allows you to change how you do your openers. So for example, a Dagger Rogue can cheap shot, backstab, gouge, whereas if they did not have the extra 10 energy, they would actually have to cheap shot, Sinister Strike, and gouge. So you can see it's a huge damage upgrade to be able to have that extra 10 energy. And Hemo benefits quite a bit as well. They're able to cheap shot, Hemo, Eviscerate with the 10 energy, which they're unable to do without it, and they'd have to probably gouge, cheap shot, Hemo, gouge if they wanted to do something similar. So really big additions to your opener game if you have that extra 10 energy. And you don't lose too many stats. The biggest loss is going to be like Bloodfang Chest, but it's really not that big of a deal if you're soft capped with your hit. So as long as you have that 5% hit and you won't miss with your abilities, that's the most important thing in PvP. It's obviously not as important as PvE. Do have a ton of extra hit because a lot of your damage is going to be coming from abilities. You also are not going to be having slice and dice up. And you also are not going to have the talent in combat that increases your offhand damage. So all of those factors are why like hit is really not that big of a deal past 5% in PvP. So that is why we're going to use the Night Slayer 5 set. And really then the question remains, okay, which 5 pieces are going to be Night Slayer? And so the best way to look at it is really what 3 pieces that aren't Night Slayer do you want to pair with Night Slayer to give you the most damage and health. And that's going to be the Taut Dragonhide Shoulders, the Boots of the Shadow Flame, and the Bloodfang Gloves. Now while the Bloodfang Gloves aren't as big of an upgrade over the Night Slayer Gloves as the Night Slayer cover to Bloodfang Hood conversion, the Night Slayer Gloves obviously do not have the immune to disarm effect. And so that is going to be the big reason to use the Bloodfang Gloves. So if you're not worried about running into warriors, you could swap in the Night Slayer Gloves and use the Bloodfang Hood. And in fact, that is in all likelihood what I'm going to be going for on my character, because Fang Talisman and Passant Cape are rather difficult items to acquire. If I don't have either, I would be at 4% hit. And so therefore it would be worth swapping out the Bloodfang Gloves for the Night Slayer Gloves for the extra hit, and then going over to Bloodfang Hood. So if you don't have Fang Talisman, that is a great alternative as well. But if you do have either a Fang Talisman or a Passant Cape, you're going to want to use the Dragonhide Shoulders, the Bloodfang Gloves, and the Boots of the Shadow Flame. So that's it for the gear for PvP. That's it for Phase 3, and thanks for watching.